Treat the theme of the most influential first-person shooter of the previous generation right, and you get an incredibly successful sequel to that game. Treat the theme of said sequel awfully, and it will leave to make what could have been a sequel to that game for another company. That's basically what happened with the Infinity Ward staff, Activision, and their Call of Duty Modern Warfare franchise. Titanfall is the product of a collaboration between former IW, now Respawn Entertainment, creative geniuses, and EA. It's pretty darn clear what the team worked on before Titanfall, but did its roots spur up a new up-and-coming franchise, or are the fruits of this new partnership rotten?
We have been defeated. Communications intercepts indicate that the militia have completed their analysis of the repulsor tower.
Next-gen automated infantry is the future, but taking out a bunch of civilians is hardly a test.
While Titanfall doesn't have an offline narrative-driven campaign, Respawn did try to deliver a story. The result is a campaign playlist and an uninteresting story that can't even be followed consistently. The campaign follows a narrative from both opposing sides of the war. There is the IMC, which serves as this universe's company's military foundation. The IMC is at war with a rebel faction known as the Militia, consisting from the mistreated outer colonies. The setup is about as traditional for sci-fi military stories as they come. The story starts after the militia comes across a peaceful unknown colony under attack from the IMC. It's revealed that the head of the colony is an ex-IMC officer named McAllen, who committed mutiny in order to live a quiet life with the rest of the crew, far away from the war. After the fight, McAllen decides to pick his rifle back up and this time fight against the IMC instead of for them. The rest of the story takes players across a few maps where they will play multiplayer matches like normal, with a little radio drama and a few small cutscenes played in the corner of the screen. Not only is the story underexplained and therefore uninteresting, if the player dies, they will not be able to continue listening or watching the story if it's going on. Combine that with the fact that the game will throw the player in the opposing faction midway the campaign in order to team balance, and you got a story that's impossible to follow or hold your attention. Some of the characters on each faction can be interesting design-wise or character-wise, and the world of the game seems interesting enough for it to justify a decent story mode, which makes it all the more disappointing. Titanfall suffers from something a lot of other games in that era suffered from: an interesting setting and lore with a bad story mode.
The group calling themselves the Militia have conducted numerous raids on IMC garrisons in at least...
Vice Admiral Graves, you and Captain McAllen have a long history of successful operations against the militia.
Stand by for Titanfall.
Bravo's under attack.
コントロールをパイロットへ移乗。
There are two main gameplay styles, which are the Pilots and Titans. Pilots are equipped with a plethora of tools and are all about fast movement and traversal. As a pilot, you can double jump, wall run, and clamber, allowing for some almost Mirror's Edge-like movement, and a level of verticality not often seen anymore in today's shooters. Players roll with pretty much the usual weapons, grenades, and ability setups you see nowadays, with the exception of a handful of weapons. Guns like the Smart Pistol, which will lock on to one or multiple targets, or the Quad Rocket, which fires 4 rockets simultaneously in a spiraling pattern. A cooldown timer in the corner of the screen shows how long it takes until pilots can call in their Titan. Players can reduce seconds of the timer by completing objectives and making kills. Titans slow down the pace considerably and are more about raw slugfests and dashing. Grenade types are now replaced with rocket types, like a cluster missile or rocket salvo. Abilities are also more interesting and useful than a pilot's stealth or X-ray ability. Your mech, for instance, can put out a heart shield or hold out a force field, which will catch incoming projectiles and send them back. While pilots have a low time to kill, and Titans have shields, health bars, and a doom state before being defeated, either is under or overpowered. Pilots carry an anti-Titan weapon, which has decent damage, and their mobility combined with the weapons the Giants use makes the pilots very hard to hit. Additionally, pilots can rodeo enemy Titans and inflict damage without the need to take down the shields. But be careful, as Titans can just crush players by walking over them. Then there are burn cards. 3 of these can be equipped per match, and 1 can be activated upon respawn. These cards give you one of several buffs, like a more powerful version of a weapon, reduced build time on your Titan, or even permanent cloaking. It's a cool, unique mechanic that gives the players an edge while none of them feel like they break the balance of the game. The maps in the game are exceptionally well designed. They allow for different routes and strategies, and complement both playstyles well. The layout and visual design make sure Titanfall has some memorable maps. As far as game modes go, it's all standard fare with deathmatch and objective based games. The only real unique modes the game offers are Deadly Grounds and Last Titan Standing. Deadly Grounds is basically the floor is lava, and Last Titan Standing is a round-based elimination game type, where a round is won when the opposing team's titans are destroyed, even if the pilots are still alive. Respawn also included their own take on survival mode, where 3 players need to defend a harvester for a certain amount of waves from hordes of enemies. Team play and objective based modes make the Titan pilot dynamic really shine. One player can grab a flag and rodeo a friendly Titan to escape, while their Titan is set on autopilot mode to defend their flag. Titanfall's gameplay hook is fast, exhilarating, and addicting, and will have players coming back for more if they enjoy the main mechanics the game has to offer. And that should have been the end of that, but sadly it isn't. While Titanfall should have been an easy recommend, there is one main problem, and it's a serious one at that. The player base is abysmally small and shrinking. You will find standard death matches as of now, but anything else aside from the campaign is pretty much deserted. It's a wild shot if you will even find players to play with. And without bot support, eventually that small pool of players will run dry, leaving nothing but deserted servers. While the game is primarily an 8th generation game, remnants of the grey muted color palette of the previous generation are apparent, though not as strong. Graphically, the game looks well enough with fairly nice models and effects. The designs in the game are great. It's a sci-fi futuristic but still with heavy tints of modern tech aesthetic. And it does it well. Weapons feel and sound good enough, but considering the setting, most guns don't really leave an impact as far as mechanics go. Titan weapons are a bit more creative, but aside from a handful of weapons and gear, designs are pretty much run-of-the-mill. Titan frames, pilot suits, and robots in the game are all very unique and neat looking, but the maps themselves are the true highlight here. These maps will take you from an installation with a skeleton of some kind of behemoth to run around on, to a lagoon with fisher huts, a crashed ship, and even an ancient temple. The layout of the maps are also visually designed to dynamically highlight points of interest for the player to run and climb to. Every match manages to feel like a war zone, since the 6v6 player matches are filled with AI grunts and robots to slaughter. Titanfall makes sure that the players always have an idea of where to go to complement the speed and maneuverability of the game. There is music in the game, but really nothing the player will even notice, with the standard Hollywood military scores meant to highlight the starts and ends of matches. The maps are the highlights of the game's presentation, but the tame weapons, muted color palette, and run-of-the-mill music leave something to be desired.
We have control. I'm detonating these things. You're doing a fine job. Let's keep this place up.
味方タイタン機能停止。味方パイロットがタイタンから脱離しました。
Hey, your Titan's good to go. Call it when ready.
As far as gameplay goes, Titanfall is sublime. Gameplay is extremely fast and addictive. It's Call of Duty stop and pop without the stop and maximum pop. The traversal elements make the game not only fast, but it gives a level of verticality which you don't see in the aforementioned series. Titans' slower, heavy, slugfest battles are as exciting as the pilots' gameplay. And both pilots and Titans are equipped with more than enough tools to deal with anything that stands between them and victory. The excellently crafted maps combined with all the standard first-person shooter modes and a quaint little take on horde mode give the players more than enough to sink their teeth in if they enjoy the main gameplay hook enough. there is no real presentable narrative to speak of, not even with the messy and uninteresting campaign game type in mind. The presentation is done well enough, despite the very 7th generation color palette. The slightly futuristic yet down-to-earth selection of weapons won't win any awards, with the exception of a handful of unique weapons which show Respawn should have stepped their game up just a bit more. Titanfall falls flat when it comes to taking this amazing gameplay and setting and maximizing its potential on a narrative and design aspect, not counting the cool maps and some cool character designs. But it's one of those games where the gameplay is more than enough to recommend it despite its flaws. That is for one major problem, and that's the player count, which is dismal and shrinking. And without bot support, it means Titanfall is destined to die a lonely death. And that's really sad. Alright, and with that, that's my 3rd review, and this time it's not a Zelda game, surprise surprise. I wanted to do a review of Titanfall ever since the game came out. I feel like I really needed to do it as fast as I can, because as I mentioned in the review, the player base is pretty much non-existent anymore. You can play some attrition, but anything else is a real wild shot if you're gonna get some people. I love this game, and originally I was thinking of giving the game a 6 out of 10 because as much as I like it, you can't really do anything because there's no more people to play with. But as soon as I had to record footage, I just enjoyed myself so much with the little matches I could do, and I just felt like giving this a 6 would have been a crime, just a fucking crime. And giving it an 8 would have been a bit unjustified, considering again the player base is pretty much non-existent, and without bot support you're not gonna be playing a lot of the game. So yeah, tell me what you think about the review, tell me what I can do better, what is good, just give me some feedback, just anything by which I can improve my reviews. Thanks, and I'll see you guys on the next review.